least six shots.
Mr. Brown was bending over as they were coming down.
At every autopsy I have ever been to and every medical examiner I have ever direct or cross-examined, they could tell which was the entry and which was the exit wound.
As I look at this diagram by Dr. Bodden, it clearly says that they were all from the front to back, entry from the front.
Let's go with the first theory, that Mr. Brown was charging at the officer. If I'm running like this, that part of my arm is exposed, so it is theoretically possible that the shot could have come from the front. Entry here and the exit right here. This one to the right upper shoulder is definitely from the front, because there's no way to take this part of my arm and rotate it to where it's facing the back. And the exit came out of the back right here by the armpit. If you look at my trajectory, it's also going towards the front part of the head, okay? Can you see?
From back to front.
From back to front, exactly.
That's an extremely unusual angle.
The same thing with the one that hits right above the eyebrow. It enters right above the right eyebrow and is traveling at that same angle. We have an exit wound on this aspect of the jaw, and then it actually continues down and re-enters right here at the right clavicle.
The wounds to the head were the last shots in a series, chronologically, to see how somebody's either going forward or back, to know that the last shots were the head shots. If you could put a chronological series of which ones were likely the first shots and which were the last shots, when you can determine that, that tells a very interesting and different story than the reverse order of the shots.
One gunshot wound to the forehead travels in a downward direction and exits right here at the right jawline. Make sure I'm pointing in the right area. So, and then it goes back in over the right clavicle. When it went back in, that gunshot wound was more of a odd-shaped, almost slit-like shaped entry wound, because the bullet is tumbling. Instead of going this way, it's doing this, and it leaves a very odd-shaped wound. And that's why Dr. Bodden and I felt that this was, over the right clavicle, a re-entry wound corresponding to the gunshot that hit the right forehead. He's turned back towards the officer.
Right.
That supports the theory that Mr. Brown was bum rushing or bullheading at the officer. Well, if that was true, then the only way to get that angle, because he is taller than Officer Wilson, would be for his head to almost be like this, his chin down at his chest, and he's, I don't know who runs that way. The other scenario that makes more sense to me is the fact that to get that angle, Mr. Brown's head is almost to the ground, and the barrel of the weapon is pointed downwards.
I think when you look at the axis of the neck and the head, and you have an opportunity, the first bullet that went in here had enough force. It was going 180 miles an hour, and it hit in the orbit and turned 90 degrees and went straight down into the jaw.
Wait, are you saying it bounced off a bone?
It went off the bone and down through into the chest, which would have put his chin down. If you put force on an object here, it tips it down. And I could foresee being a weapon discharged into the apex.
I'm sorry, Dr. Maroney. I respect the both of you immensely, but I've never heard of a bullet taking a U-turn.
Anytime a missile enters the body, we consider it to recoil off of other bones or hard objects. We know well that arm bones and ribs re-divert bullets, and there is nothing more dense than the head. But it is very possible the orbit is a cup, and it could redirect bone, a bullet through the bone, and it did come out the jaw, and that's 180 miles an hour when it comes, and it takes direction, puts energy in, puts the head down, and then the bullet enters into the clavicle.
Which side of the story do your forensic results support? The cops or Michael Brown's?
It supports the story that Mr. Brown could have been charging the officer, and in particular, the wound corresponding to the right forearm. It also supports Mr. Brown putting his hands up like this, showing that Mr. Brown was trying to surrender because you still have that part of your arm exposed. It also supports the other witness statement saying that Mr. Brown was walking away from the officer and jerked his arm as if he was shot and then turns around.
Right.
Because, as you know, that part of your arm is facing the back at that point in time.